today is Thursday, March 31st, last day of March. And I'm Fran Duval, your host for today, and I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to introduce you to Charlie Bliss, our resident. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
I'm glad to see you again. You and I met last week to discuss. You know, I don't want to comment too much on your age, but to do a profile on a person 98 years old, that is going to have to be a big profile.
To me, it's only a number.
Oh, okay. Well, that's obvious because it is surprising to read what your age is. The only reason I know it is because it was in the Fairfax paper, and it kind of opened the paragraph with your age. But anyway, good morning, and you're here specifically to discuss a recent patent you received for an invention that is going to greatly affect global warming. Or diminish global warming, let's hope.
I hope.
Okay, well, tell us, first of all, you've been here quite a while at Green Spring, right?
June will be 13 years.
Okay, all right, 13 years. Where were you before?
I came from Falls Church, and before that, all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah.
Your job took you?
Major overseas, Nigeria for 4.5 years in the 1960s. Pakistan for 2.5 years in the 1980s, Colombia for a year, and Philippines for a year, and a lot of travel.
Yeah. And what were you doing? What was taking you there? Your job, obviously.
Well, in 1980, I fell into this backwards when I joined a consulting firm as an engineer. And they said they'd like to get me involved in what President Kennedy had just instituted, the Agency for International Development. And the major program was going to be Nigeria because it had just become independent, and that was going to be the keystone of the whole program. And it did last 9 years. And I had just joined this company, Arthur D. Little, as an engineer, and they wanted me to get involved. And I said, what would an engineer do in economic development? And they said, well, try it, you'll like it. By the time I got involved, I found out that, in my view, that economic development was too important to be left to the economists.
Oh, my.
And the engineers had to get involved.
Yeah.
And so I've had all that experience as a result.
And your engineering expertise is what brought you to this concern about global warming and what could be done about it. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it evolved.
Yeah.
I started working in 1940, so I'm up to around 76 years now of continuous experience. 40 years in the private sector up to about 1980. 1980, 91, I worked for the Agency for International Development.
Right.
And since then, with my colleague Charlie Mosley, with whom we've been working, I've been continually busy as an independent consultant. And it's all started also with the failure of the former Soviet Union, where under Boris Yeltsin, AID had a program in these countries. So I started working independently in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, Ukraine, Russian Federation. And there have been projects ever since. I did a lot of work in Poland and so forth. And what happened was, concern with global warming really started in the late 20th century with the carbon dioxide emissions. And I had been involved in fossil energy during my whole career. And it's probably too long a story to repeat, but what happened finally was that I had heard of a power plant in northern Arizona that was on the land of the Navajo Nation, which has a treaty with the U.S. federal government that gives them a certain amount of sovereignty. And they depend a great deal on that power plant because it employs, most of the people are Navajos, and they get rental for the property and so forth. And they were under threat because of emissions of nitrogen oxides. And nitrogen oxides from coal firing or any fuel forms a haze in the atmosphere. And it was a haze over the Grand Canyon tourist area. And that was the big concern. And I had an experience before with another power plant in Nevada that had the same problem, and ultimately the management decided it was cheaper for them to decommission the plant, dismantle it, than to try to make it meet the standard.
Meet the standards,
and I
yeah.
could see this was could happen to this power plant
To
on
the Navajo
Nation.
one, yeah.
And that really put everything together. And it combined the work we had done before in Afghanistan in producing biodiesel. And this was work that I did from here. I wasn't there. And Afghanistan had been a cotton growing country before all their problems that arose. And cottonseed oil would be a good feedstock for biodiesel. And it turns out that algae, too, is a good feed because algae produces algae oil. And biodiesel is a renewable fuel for engines. And at the same time, when I got involved with this Navajo plant, for them to meet the standard, the EPA called for public comment.
Okay.
And I decided that I would put in a public comment, which is this thing over here.
Yes.
And that all led to combine all sorts of things, including not only how you use the carbon dioxide that you could capture from the gases coming out of the chimney of a coal-fired power plant, but also the production of biodiesel and so on. It all came together. And that also led to the patent we now have that has to do with algae cultivation.
Well, just a question just came into my mind. You're talking about are you going to be using the Navajo plant to like do a prototype of your invention, or?
They don't know this yet.
Oh, okay. We better not
But
tell them.
I would like to see it happen, and this is a problem we face,
Well,
my partner and I.
If algae, in my head, algae is related to oceans or lakes or whatever. Is that true? That's where algae comes?
Yeah.
Or can you produce algae in some other way?
If you go on the internet and put the word algae in, you can spend days on what's there. I mean, it's everywhere. There was a picture I saw this morning of someone swimming in a lake that's covered with algae, and all you would see with the algae and this little fellow swimming here. But we're interested in microalgae, which is very small particles. And we're interested in cultivating it in an enclosed system called a photobioreactor.
Okay.
And a
Photobioreactor.
commercial plant that uses photobioreactors looks like this.
I think we have a picture. There it is, up on the screen.
Yeah. And you can see it's a massive installation. This happens to be in Israel, in the Negev desert. And all we can find out about it is that the algae they're producing is to produce something called astaxanthin, which is a high-valued product that's used as a food additive and making cosmetics, et cetera, and so forth. And that value is so high that it probably justifies a massive installation like this.
I see.
But the intent of our patent is to cut the size down, cut the capital investment down, so this thing is attractive, especially since whatever is done with carbon dioxide capture, keeping it out of the atmosphere, is going to have to be paid by the consumer. And so our patent is oriented to doing this kind of thing, but not so big for the amount of production that we need.
And this makes algae.
Yeah, the algae is produced in those tubes by putting through water, algae spores, and carbon dioxide, and lots of sunshine. And time for it to happen. And the objective of what we're trying to do is to cut down that time. If you cut it down, you cut down the size.
Okay.
You cut down the capital, you reduce the costs.
And it makes it more attractive for companies to invest in this kind of production.
Yeah, right.
Because ultimately it will, it's bio-friendly. It's
Oh yeah, it's renewable energy.
It's renewable energy, yeah.
The other thing of carbon dioxide that's captured before it goes into the atmosphere is it's used to enhance oil production. An oil field, when it's fully produced, half of the oil is still on the ground because the pressure that forced it up in the first place has dissipated.
I see.
By putting in very high pressure carbon dioxide, injecting it into that formation, and it mixes with the oil, it reduces its viscosity.
Okay.
Makes it thinner, and it flows more readily to the wells.
And you don't lose as much of it.
And that's a major industry that exists. So the markets for carbon dioxide are there to that point for crude oil improvement. But the algae market could be huge in terms of the potential for it all over the world.
So carbon dioxide is often associated with coal burning facilities, places that burn coal for their energy.
Yeah.
And then the carbon dioxide goes up the chimney and is lost.
That's right.
Now, I'm thinking in terms of the people who work in coal mines or the companies that are related to coal would benefit from this because they wouldn't be getting the bad press all the time about the carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because if they combined using our supply of coal, you told me we produce a lot of coal in this country, right?
About 1 billion tons a year.
And we export it.
There's some exported, yes.
So the areas of the country where their jobs are related to this whole industry of coal, well, that seems to give them more job security. I don't know, maybe I'm dreaming, but...
I don't have exact figure, but I believe that the total employment in the coal industry in the United States is somewhere around 700,000. And then there's all the reverberation effects of 700,000 people working. Other people work also.
Sure.
Supermarkets and things of that sort.
Yeah, the people, the other service industries in that area.
And the other thing is it's a huge resource in terms of its energy content. And worldwide, if you think of the U.S. 1 billion tons a year production, China produces 4 billion tons a year production.
Oh my. And they don't clean up their air so well, do they?
Not really. Not really.
We see some awful pictures sometimes.
The point to make is you can burn coal absolutely cleanly in all respects without air pollution, without land pollution, without water pollution, if you pay for it. And the consumer has to pay for it, and that's a political issue.
And the consumer could be anyone from a resident to an industry.
No, Green Spring is a consumer. The people who have houses, industry is a consumer.
Right, right.
Everyone who uses electricity.
What are the other forms of good energy, so to speak?
Well, the other is natural gas, of course.
All right.
And for 1 kilowatt hour consumption, that's burning a 100-watt bulb for 10 hours, 1 kilowatt hour. in coal firing, there's 1.8 pounds of carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere. With natural gas, it's only about 0.8.
Okay.
That's why the focus is on natural gas.
Okay.
But natural gas is a precious resource, and the last thing you should do with it is to burn it, except in residences and cooking and so forth. It's an industrial raw material, so forth.
So we have wind energy.
Well, when you go to the renewables,
Yeah.
you have wind, you have solar panels, you have hydroelectricity, and you have biomass. Those are the four major categories. There's also solar energy that's used to produce steam. And that steam is used to produce electricity.
Right, right.
That is the renewable energy thing.
Right.
There are some more sophisticated ways, but it isn't worth talking about.
Right, yeah, right. And so if, I want to ask you about your cohort that was with you on this patent.
Yeah, Charlie Mosley.
Yeah, where, he doesn't live here, does he?
No, he lives nearby. He's in the area.
In Fairfax County?
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
okay. But you've been working with him for years.
I suspect he may be looking. No, he's not looking. He's not in this.
He does.
Right.
Tell him he can go on YouTube at some point, and we'll.
Right. Right.
I think we can go. Am I right on that? Somebody maybe tell me. All of this. When would we any kind of result? How long does it take, like, to get go from a patent to some kind of prototype to some kind of real-time use of this invention, which I think all the politicians ought to be bragging about the research that would help this.
If you recognize there are institutional obstacles and political obstacles and financial obstacles, and you have a technology that can do the job, it won't happen overnight. In our patenting, if we're lucky and it generates interest, it has to go through an applied research phase, then a pilot plant stage, then a semi-commercial stage, and then it could be commercial. That's a 10 to 15-year program.
Wow, wow.
In fact, if there was unanimity to do something about suppressing CO2 emissions, we could revolutionize the energy sector in the U.S., but it might take 15 to 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, but in the whole scope of things, that's nothing.
That's right. That's right. It's nothing at all.
Yeah, that.
My colleague and I have been working together for 30 years already. Right?
And it doesn't seem like it, does it?
Doesn't seem like it, right?
All right, so I had some questions when we were talking before last week, but I still go back to this thing about algae. Algae, isn't it used like for fertilizers and some kind of medical implication? Am I right on that?
Yeah, there are all sorts of uses, and I really haven't gotten into that.
I know you said
My main concern is to use the algae to help suppress CO2 emissions, which means biodiesel, or burning the algae itself as a fuel, which is renewable, and so forth, which would impact on reducing the amount of coal that's used, but it would have its place. I mean, right now, of the total energy consumption in the United States, renewables are about 9%.
Wow, that's not much.
Not much. But in the end, there's going to have to be some logical place for renewables. 10%, 20%, 30%, some logical place. Then that has to evolve, and it has to be done in a methodological manner without any arbitrary interference.
Well, isn't part of the problem that not everybody agrees that we're even having global warming.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're from Texas or a member of the Sierra Club.
I see.
I mean, you have the extremes.
Those are
right there,
on
right?
the continuum, those are the extremes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the answer is somewhere in between. And that's what has to be found. And it has to be done in a deliberate fashion. And it has to be focused on keeping carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
And people have to be convinced that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is causing some global warming.
That's an incontrovertible scientific fact. Carbon dioxide, or any what they call polyatomic gas, a gas that has more than one kind of atom in it, will absorb in the infrared and raise the temperature of the atmosphere. Methane is another bad actor. But carbon dioxide is the biggest one.
And we've, over the years, we've found ways to produce carbon dioxide.
Well, yeah, sometimes you have to manufacture it because you don't have it. I guess Coca-Cola Company probably is a big user of carbon dioxide.
Really? You mean user of it, or?
Well, that's what fizzes in
to
Coca-Cola.
make it fizzy.
Yeah.
To make it fizzy.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. See, I didn't think about carbon dioxide in that way at all. It's related to food.
There is a plastic called polycarbonate that uses carbon dioxide as a raw material. And when it's a plastic, it's fixed, you see.
I had another question for you. And what was it? You know, this science, and that's what it is, right? Your engineering education or background, it was in electrical? I mean, did it
I'm a chemical engineer.
It was mechanical. Okay.
Chemical engineer.
Okay. Oh, in chemical engineer.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Oh, I see. So that's where the patent got. The people in the patents office were examining it from a chemical point of view.
Well, I don't know how they operate. That's a big mystery to me. They gave us plenty of headaches.
Did they?
and bills to pay.
Is anybody trying to infringe on your patent?
Not that we know of yet, but
there are other
it could
people.
happen, especially internationally.
Okay.
You know, one of the things about patents is that you can patent internationally, and that's another cost item. And
Sure. For protection. Listen, I want to tell the audience that before we went on the air, Charlie told me that he needed 4 minutes at the end of the show to give us an astounding remark. And Charlie, 4 minutes is there upon us.
Well,
what is this astounding? I'm dying to know. You wouldn't tell me last week.
When you come to think about it, there's no such thing as renewable energy.
What?
You are astounded, right?
Why are they using that phrase then?
Renewable energy comes from the sun. No matter what it is, wind or anything, it's because of the sun's radiation on the earth. And where does the sun get its energy to radiate from? From hydrogen. The sun's temperature on its surface is about 20 million degrees Fahrenheit or centigrade. Doesn't make much difference. Inside the sun, it's even hotter. At those temperatures, these hydrogen atoms are moving at horrendous velocities, smashing against each other, zigzagging all around, and periodically or frequently, 4 of those hydrogen atoms smash together and form 1 atom of helium. When that happens, 4 atoms of hydrogen weigh slightly more than 1 atom of helium. So you have a weight excess, which is mass, and in that process, that mass converts to energy by Einstein's E = mc² formula. And that's where the energy comes from. So what happens when the sun runs out of hydrogen? No more hydrogen.
Oh my.
No more sun.
Is that going to happen?
So therefore the sun's energy is not renewable. But the astronomers And the physicists tell us there's still enough hydrogen in the sun to last about 2 or 3 billion years. So not to worry.
I'm glad you told us not to worry. But that is astounding, that there's no renewable energy. Or is was that the phrase you said?
I think let's still call it renewable energy.
Well, then what's the point of this conversation? I mean,
No, I'm being facetious.
Okay.
The point is that since 3 billion years is a long time, there's no harm in calling it renewable energy.
I see. Oh, all right.
Okay.
They may have to get a different vocabulary later
Okay.
for that, right? That's pretty astounding.
But in the end, if this evolutionary process that's begun continues, and it's without constraint or obstructed, there'll be a natural balance between how much renewables the U.S. will use and how much fossil. Mm-hmm. And the fossil will be environmentally friendly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now that's a period.
You know, you mentioned to me about the other sources like wind and solar, and you said you saw a video or something of a helicopter going over a wind farm.
Yeah, I came across on the internet a video that was put up by a Swedish utility company called Vattenfall, which means waterfalls. And it had built a nest of wind turbines in the English Channel. Mm-hmm. And this was a helicopter survey of the facility. And for about 30 minutes, that helicopter wandered around and you saw all the facilities and just how it was all put together. And for that entire 30-minute period, all the vanes on the turbines were stationary.
There just wasn't any wind.
There wasn't any wind.
So even that, I get you.
In other words, it's variable.
Yeah. In the same way with solar, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't have enough time to go through everything, and we're out of time now. But it has been, I think, it will tweak people's interest in this.
I'll be at the Earth Day ceremony in case there are any questions.
I'm glad you're plugging that because, you know, beginning this week or next week, there's just a plethora of events leading up to Earth Day, and Charlie will be at a table on the 21st, is it?
No, I think the 14th of April.
Oh, the 14th, of course.
And I'll be ready to answer any and all questions.
There you go. Get your questions ready and say you watch this program, but this wasn't explained.
And I'll bring my suit of armor with me.
Nobody will throw darts at you. Nobody. Thank you so much for giving us this interest.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Feature program. Oh, special announcement.